Search symbols. This podcast, number 86, is at the intermediate level. It requires some knowledge of Accordance Bible software, but no knowledge of Hebrew or Greek. Accordance has the most powerful search engine of any Bible software program, but are you taking advantage of it? Many of us have been conditioned by the limitations of paper concordances. Accordance can do so much more, like use search symbols. Let's take a quick look at them and see what they can do for us. Before using search symbols, we recommend users switch their search options to exact search. To do so, just click the search magnifying glass on the left of the search entry box and then select exact search. Accordance recognizes 14 different search symbols. Any of these can be entered directly from the keyboard or from the search menu on a computer. Each symbol has a brief description next to it which describes its function. However, the search menu only displays the ones that are relevant at any given moment. 6 for verse searches and 11 for word searches. So let's divide them into these two groups. Search symbols for verse searches. If you've ever used a hyphen to indicate a range of verses or books, or entered a colon or period between a chapter and a verse, you've already been using search symbols in your verse searches. Here are some more ways to power up those verse searches. An asterisk orders Accordance to show all verses. A hyphen specifies a search range of books, chapters, or verses. We can use either a colon or a period to separate chapter numbers from verse numbers. The first one is usually used in the United States, and the latter is more common in Europe. A comma separates like items in a list, like verses or books. Semicolons separate chapter numbers or complete verse references. The letter F after a number means and the one following, whether it's a verse or a chapter. A double F is shorthand for and all the rest of the verses until the end of the chapter, or and all the rest of the chapters until the end of the book. Before we do anything else, let's change our search options to exact search. Then, we simply hit the Tab key until the search entry box is selected, then hit Delete and Return. This will display the entire Bible. The other way to do this is to enter an asterisk in verse search mode, which searches for all verses. Now, I know that many of you are bypassing the verse search and simply using the Go To box and the scroll bar or navigation arrows to find your passage. That'll work, but there is a better method. That method is to do a verse search. We simply enter enough of the book's name for Accordance to recognize it, then the chapter and verse. Hit Return, and we're there. If the contextual slider is set to 0, only the verses we specify will be displayed. We can expand the number of verses by moving the slider. It then indicates the number of additional verses displayed both before and after the selected passage. That means we can see as much or as little of the passage's context just by adjusting the slider. Typing an asterisk in the search entry box returns the display to all verses. And by the way, typing an asterisk in when the search mode is set to word search searches for every word in the Bible. We can see the difference because every word is then highlighted, like it is here. Where verse search mode really shines, though, is when we need to display a set of verses out of order. Let's say we're studying the last half of Hebrews 6, God's promise to Abraham. It has a lot of references to events in Genesis. Now, let's insert those verses in between the ones in Hebrews 6. I'm going to paste the references in, as I'm pretty much a hunt and peck typist, and I just don't think you want to wait for me to type them in manually. There. Notice I've used a variety of verse search symbols in the entry box. Now the references I need are interspersed with the Hebrews passage. I've already completed my study of this passage and entered my observations in my user notes. When I add them in a parallel pane, we can see just how convenient this method is. All my notes are right at hand, ready for my presentation. And if I'm using my iPad, everything I need is displayed all at once. My audience won't have to wait for me to hunt and peck to find each verse either. Search symbols for word searches. Accordance 10's Flex Search has largely taken over the most common use of search symbols in word searches. However, there are things it just can't do. That's when we really come to appreciate the precision of using search symbols in an exact word search. The first two word search symbols are the opening and closing parentheses. They work together with a comma to group items into a list. The equal sign orders accordance to search for an exact word, including capital letters, accents, apostrophes, hyphens, and the like. The period is used to search for any character, even ones that would normally be used as a search symbol. This can also be useful to search for superscript characters, including Bible notes and text-critical marks. The asterisk searches for any string of characters, no matter how large or how small, including none at all. It's great when we're in a hurry and don't want to spell out a long name. The question mark requires any single letter, A to Z, or digit, 0 through 9. The hyphen has two functions in word searches, both of which require a wildcard and a set of parentheses. First, it is used to indicate a range, just as it does in verse searches. Second, the same symbol is also used as a minus sign when we want to eliminate a letter or digit from consideration. Accordances tag texts include both translations tagged with key numbers and original language texts tagged with grammatical information. Some word search symbols are only used with these kinds of texts, or have a special meaning when used with them. The @ sign links word search criteria. In a translation tagged with key numbers, it might specify that a search only find an English word when it translates a specific Greek or Hebrew word, represented by a key number. In a tagged original language text, it might search for a word only when it appears as a specific part of speech. The rest of these symbols are used primarily with original language grammatically tagged texts. Since this isn't a Greek or Hebrew podcast, we won't do more than simply mention them here for completeness' sake. No search symbol is required when searching for all forms of a lemma, since this is Accordance's default. Placing quotation marks around a word searches for specific inflected forms. Now, just an aside here. Technically, placing quotation marks around a word searches for a specific character string that only includes letters. So this search will find homographs. A homograph is a word that is written in the same way as another word. A plus sign in front of a word searches for every word containing that root. Finally, the equals sign tells Accordance to search for this exact word, including capitalization, accents, breathing marks, vowel pointing, final form, root, etc. Together, these word search symbols allow us to find any word or combination of words we want. Word searches are undoubtedly the most common kind of search in Accordance. Flex search has been a big help, but it doesn't do everything. Consider the passages we've been studying. Abraham is called both Abram and Abraham in Scripture. If we want to find all the passages that mention him, we'll have to search for both of those names. Now, there are a lot of ways we can do that, just as there are many different ways to say something in English. We can put both names into a set of parentheses and separate them by a comma. Or, since the difference between them is just the HA in the middle of the name, we can also replace those letters with an asterisk, which will allow the letters to be there or not. In fact, since both names begin with the same 4 letters, we can just type ABRA asterisk. That will catch the possessives, like the one here at Genesis 11:29. Or what if we want to find every word that begins with FAITH and BELIE? That would find faith and faithful, as well as believe, all the forms of the noun believer, and all the verbs derived from to believe. Finally, what if we wanted to find every place where believe translated the same Hebrew word as is in Genesis 15:6? First, we add the @ symbol we mentioned earlier. I'll do it from the menu this time. Then, the command for key number search. Now we find out what the word's key number is here, then enter it into the search entry box like so. Presto! There are 38 times where this Hebrew word occurs in the Old Testament and is translated believe. Accordance Bible software goes well beyond the resources offered in any printed Bible concordance. Search symbols, along with search commands, allow us to take advantage of its power and speed. David Lang, author of many of our Accordance blogs, has said, In accordance, searches are only limited by our imagination. Well, I trust today's podcast will have sparked your imagination with new possibilities in Bible study. This has been Dr. J for Accordance Bible Software. Thank you for watching this episode of Lighting the Lamp.